Now, tonight, we wanted to bring you some stories to, well, warm the cockles and ease us into 2020 with tales from people for whom 2019 was a really significant year. A year ago, Vix Leyton was terrified of speaking in front of people and hated how she looked. Working in PR, talking was a big part of her job, and she hated turning things down just because speaking in front of people was too scary. But last New Year's Eve, after a few drinks, we'll find out how many in a second, she decided she needed a New Year's resolution and somehow ended up booking a half-day stand-up course with no intention of ever doing comedy. And I'll let her pick up the story from here because she's with us. Good morning, Vix. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good, yeah.
So let's start at the beginning. So you worked in PR. PR is a notoriously sociable industry. You know, there's a lot of drinks receptions. I'm told anyway, I work in radio. We're just in studios all the time. What was it about public speaking that was just so scary?
I don't know. I was a show-off as a child, like a proper nightmare of a show-off, putting on my own little shows for people, charging them money. I used to go door to door, putting on my self-produced shows when I was a kid. And it must have been, now knowing 7-year-olds who are as precocious as me, I must have been an absolute nightmare for my parents. But over the years, I just became so self-conscious about it that I get myself into like a proper sweaty, shaky mess having to speak, and it just got worse and worse and worse to the point where I was making myself physically sick at the thought of having to stand up in a meeting with even 10 people from work, like people I knew. So the risk was so little of making a fool of myself. And I just don't know how it happened. It just crept up on me. And I reached a point where I was being asked, because PR is quite like you say, it's quite a sociable thing. There's a lot of events. And because I'm a woman working in the car industry at the moment, there was quite a lot of demand to have me on panels and speaking at things. And I just kept saying no to them and just sort of crawling away and feeling a bit ashamed of myself. And then I'd go to these conferences and see that there were no women speakers and be absolutely livid about it. But I wasn't doing anything to solve the problem myself. And I just felt like I really need to start picking up the slack or stop complaining. So, yeah, I had a drink was taken.
How many drinks? Or is it one of those nights where you actually just don't know?
I don't typically count because the count is often quite depressing, isn't it? So I'd had a few. It's not usually the home of my good decision making. That level.
So this was last New Year's Eve, so 2018 into
Speaking
this
to
year.
my friends about it, you look back at the year and you take stock. And I look back at the year and I was like, I turned down some really cool stuff, like traveling abroad to do conferences. I was like, I really need to do something about this. And, with all the confidence of a drunk person, I Googled this course and I was like, oh, it's by something called Funny Women. I'm a funny woman. Honestly, ask anyone. I was like, yeah, I can do this. This will be great. And I woke up the next day and wasn't feeling it quite as much, to say the least. And right up until probably half hour before, I was fairly sure I just wasn't going to go. I tweeted about it. Unfortunately, somebody in the class had tweeted me back, and I was like, wow, I've got a friend. Okay, cool. Right, I've got someone to hold me responsible if I don't turn up. But if it hadn't been for somebody who's now a really good mate, I definitely wouldn't have gone. So right up until the moment, I was like, yeah, do I need to put myself through this? I'm 35 now. And I was like, why am I putting myself in a situation that makes me uncomfortable? I can, avoid this for the rest of my life. I've done it with loads of things. I don't have kids. I've avoided them. It's like...
I think is that easy? I know it's easier to avoid children than public speaking. I'm not sure. All right, so I'm intrigued. You get to the stand-up course. What even is that? How does that work? How do they teach you to be funny?
I think basically the whole premise of the course is that everybody has got it in them to be funny. We're all used to being storytellers. We all know that, when something awful or diabolical happens to you and you're like, the only good thing about this is I can't wait to tell people about this. And it was right. There were about 15 of us in the class, and I thought every single one of them was like intimidatingly good at speaking and brilliant. And we did some exercises, and I could feel my legs shaking. Like I was in this lovely circle of really supportive women who are all in the same boat. I could feel my legs shaking, and my eyes started to twitch. I get a nervous eye twitch in extreme stressful situations.
Bless you. Wobbly legs, twitchy eye.
I must have looked fantastic. So I'm sitting there sweating and twitching, and I got round to my turn, and people laughed at my story, and I was like, huh, I like this. This is great. And as much as it sort of shifted something in my head, I was nervous, but I was the right kind of nervous for the next bit. The exercise was like, I want to do that again, and it was. I say it was that simple. It wasn't, because by that point I was comfortable enough with these women. It was a really supportive thing. But I sort of went away at the end, and the course tutor Lynn was like, so are you going to do any comedy now? Because a lot of the people in the room were there to learn comedy skills, and I was just there to try and not be a coward in my day job. So I thought, all right, maybe I will. So in that way, again, where I kind of, it's like Noel Edmonds style, I suppose, ask the universe. So I just thought, I'll put it on Facebook.
He also likes to talk to trees. That's worth a go as well. No.
I mean, it's been me and my Christmas tree for like a couple of hours now, because my husband's gone to bed. So I reached a point just before this call where I might have given it a go. But so I put on Facebook just really quite a half-hearted little update. I was like, hi guys, so I've done a comedy course and I'm quite interested in doing open mic. Does anyone have any ideas? And nobody did. And so I kind of gave myself the pass on it. I was like, okay, cool, look, I tried. Everybody can see I can try. I've got the receipts. It's here. No one helped me. I also tweeted about it, and then like the comedian Mark Watson spotted my tweet and tweeted me back, because he was doing this 26-hour marathon show and asking like normal people, like muggles like me, to come and do challenges to sort of things that they've always wanted to do. And he was like, did I see that you've started doing comedy? Do you want to come and do learning comedy as part of my show? And like when one of your favourite comedians asks you to do something like that, you kind of have to do it. So it was like, again, I was really scared, because as much as I talked a good game about wanting to do it, the idea of getting up in front of a lot of people was still quite terrifying. But the idea of not doing it kind of won. I was like, nah, I've got to do this. When opportunities like this present themselves, you've got to give it a go.
So how was it?
It was amazing. I had the best day. I mean, I was awake for so long because everybody just sat in the show pretty much for the whole time, and I had drastically miscalculated because I'm not the most organised person. So I was like, staying awake for 26 hours is fine. Like, that's not a problem. What I hadn't really taken into account is that it started at 9:48 in the evening and went through to midnight the next day, and I had to do a full day of work before. So by the end, I'd actually been awake for 40 hours.
Oh, that is a mistake, Vix.
And my eyelid was twitching by the end of that again, but that was mainly because I drank so much Red Bull. I really did think I could fly. Like, you know, I could hear colours, basically, by the end of the 40 hours. And I got to go up on stage a few times and met some really, really cool people. And, by the end, I was, like, pretty much raring to go. I was like, yeah, I'm going to give this a try. One of the people that I did a little bit of a session with ran a comedy night and got in touch with me a couple of weeks after and said, do you want to come and do a 5-minute spot at the comedy night? And I did. And I've done, tonight was my 71st show.
That's
I say tonight,
amazing.
Like yesterday, I think now. I don't know, this is like a completely new time zone to me, this this late night.
I was going to say, I know a little bit about staying awake through the night. Just, just a little bit. I would say eat your main meal at like 11 o'clock. Don't go any later than that. But how's it been? How has it changed? So you're still working, you're still doing PR, but you've done over 70 stand-up gigs this year. How has it changed how you feel about your job and your life?
Oh, it's been unbelievable. It's like brand new community of people. Everyone's been so supportive. And like I said, at 35, I kind of thought my course in life was pretty set. Like, I'm happy in my day job. Things are pretty settled. And the more I did it, the more I liked it. And it's kind of slowly but surely like taken over this massive chunk of my my consciousness. And yeah, I've always had real issues with like body confidence. It's one of those things that everybody says, isn't it? But I think it's so deeply ingrained in us, particularly as women, that, you know, when you feel like you're going to be looked at, you're more critical of yourself than anybody else is. So I always used to kind of avoid any time where there might be a video or something that might jar with what I hoped I'd look like.
I know
and
that
part
feeling.
of comedy is you kind of have to watch your tapes back, and you also have to listen to your own voice, which I guess as a radio presenter you're kind of used to, but it is excruciating for me, because I'm like, oh, do I really sound like that? But you have to. And I think the more the videos I watched of me doing it and the more confident I looked doing it, the more I was able to kind of appreciate other things beyond like what I looked like, oh, do I, you know, is that outfit flattering? Do I look heavy? It was kind of like, actually, some of my expressions are quite funny. Like, and I started to appreciate little elements of me that I didn't even know existed. So it's been quite a nice process, actually, sort of getting to know myself as, you know, an outside observer. So it's changed my mindset quite a lot.
And how do you feel now when someone asks you to do a presentation, stand up in a meeting? Has that changed?
Well, yeah, I think the one thing that it's taught me is that the only thing you can control in situations like public speaking is your bit of it and how you react to things. So if something's not going very well, like nobody necessarily knows. So like, if it's like with comedies, like you never know who's going to be in the audience. You never know if they're going to be your people or if they're not. But you just have to kind of give up worrying about that because you can't change it. There's nothing you can do. The only thing you can do is sort of, you know, control your own response to things. So if you're really well prepared, and like the thing about doing like public speaking for work is you can be really prepared. In theory, if you're going along to a conference of enthusiasts about cars or whatever it is you're talking about, they're going to be interested in what you've got to say. Whereas with comedy, you could have 5 minutes of jokes about Facebook and then get into the room and it's a lot of 70-year-olds that live on an island with no internet. And then you're like, oh.
You could have a Nish Kumar moment.
We're going to have a horrible time here.
Dreadful.
But yeah, and in those moments, like if a joke doesn't go well, nobody necessarily knows that was the punchline unless you give it away. So it's really taught me a lot about having a game face, I think. But yeah, it's been really liberating, and it's something new, and I think it's opened up a load of ideas in my head of other things that I could do that I didn't think that I either thought I'd kind of timed out on or didn't have time for. And yeah, 'cause like my career is all encompassing. Like PR is not really a 9-to-5 job, like you said. There's loads of social stuff to do. You've got to be kind of on it all the time. And I had let it define me for years and years and years because I was so proud of it. But if someone had said, have you got time to do 3 or 4 nights a week committing to what effectively is a hobby, I probably would have told them that I didn't. But it's amazing how much time I've found for this because I love it. So I have to leave work in a much more disciplined way, and I have to switch off and I have to be somebody else. And I get to be somebody else. Like I get to represent myself to a whole new community of people that don't know me as like boring personal finance PR person or what I was 10 years ago. And it's been really fun, and everybody's been really kind. And I think like established comedians have been so kind because I've been sort of tweeting along, letting everybody know how it's gone. And anyone I've approached for help, even if they're like proper like Live at the Apollo famous people, like particularly women, have been so quick to offer support and help when it's been a bad show, just telling me to keep plugging away. It's just been it's been really, really nice. It's like this whole little hidden world that I didn't know existed.
So occasionally drunken New Year's resolutions, good thing.
Yeah, who knew?
Who knew?
And also Twitter, like it gets a bad rap, but genuinely it's like, had I not met, like I said, my now friend Jen, had Mark Watson not tweeted me about the show, like none of this would have happened without
Vix,
that.
So lovely to speak to you.
Cool.
Thank you for coming live on the radio after your stand-up gig. And who knows, we may be seeing you live at the Apollo in the next couple of years.
Let's not rule it out.
You never know. Vix Leyton there, who changed her life by booking half a day's stand-up course. We'd love to hear from you if 2019 was the year that changed your life. Get in touch.